Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories. Europe strikes a hard line on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Ministers insist a two-state solution is the only answer. Israeli protesters storm the country's parliament, demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. At least 8 people are dead and dozens of others are missing in a landslide in China. More extreme weather brings travel chaos to northern Europe as Storm Aisha lashes the UK and Ireland. And India's Prime Minister inaugurates a controversial Hindu temple in a city scarred by religious conflict. European foreign ministers have insisted there is no alternative to a two-state solution to secure peace between Israel and Palestine. They're meeting in Brussels as the European Union considers potential steps towards a comprehensive resolution to this conflict. The Israeli and Palestinian foreign ministers are making separate appearances at the talks. The EU's foreign policy chief, Joseph Borrell, says Israel's plan to destroy the Palestinian armed group Hamas is not working.
The humanitarian situation could not be worse, There is no words to explain how the situation is, with hundreds of thousands without anything, without shelters, without food, without medicines, and under the bombs. And every day there is a high toll of civilian people being killed. Many ministers have said that there are too many. Well, the question is, how many is too many?
Let's talk to our correspondent, Stuart Smith, watching events for us in Brussels. Stuart, realistically, what are we expecting from this meeting?
Well, a high-ranking EU official said before the meeting that they're looking for a full and frank discussion with all participants, Arab nations as well as Israel and Palestine, with a view to try to understand each other's perspectives and better pinpoint any path forward. Now, the EU official admitted they are starting from a very low bar, with both Hamas and Israel saying that they are not in favour of a two-state solution, which is what the EU is exactly in favour of. But they are looking, having had this discussion and over the next few months, to eventually work towards a possible peace conference and also talk about what policy the European Union should take. So the parties involved throughout Monday, indeed the Foreign Minister of Israel, the EU foreign ministers have already spoken in that setting. Then there's also been a working lunch with the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan and the Secretary General of the Arab League. They'll hear from the Palestinian Foreign Minister before gathering as EU foreign ministers to discuss what they've heard. Here's the position of the Belgian Foreign Minister, Hadja Lahib.
This war cannot be solved with weapons. Since October 7, over 25,000 people have lost their lives. Gaza is in an extremely urgent situation. There's a risk of famine and disease. The fighting needs to stop. The message I'll be bringing in the name of Belgium is clear. We call for an immediate ceasefire, the release of hostages, the respect of international law, a return to the peace process, which must lead to the creation of two states living in peace side by side.
Now, the EU says it's not too early to start talking about a two-state solution. We don't need to wait for the war to end, says the foreign affairs ministers here. But how to get there is obviously the key question, and that's what's being discussed today.
Also being discussed today, Stuart, a naval mission to try to secure shipping routes in the Red Sea.
Yeah, exactly right. There are already EU member states with a naval presence there. What the European Union is trying to do is arrange some kind of mission that is under the control of EU command. There's famously not an EU army, but there are mechanisms, as have been used before, to tackle Somali pirates, where EU member states can bring their militaries together to try to tackle a particular issue. So this would be slightly different, ministers are suggesting, than the UK and US mission, which targeted Houthi positions in Yemen. This would be emphasised on trying to create reopening that Red Sea shipping route, escorting commercial vessels through that and protecting them rather than striking Houthi positions themselves. That could take perhaps a month or more to get arranged if there could be made good progress with this meeting on Monday. We'll find out about that later, but it would be distinct. It would be its own EU mission under EU control, and also the main military nations that would have said they would like to be part of this, including Belgium, France, Italy, Spain and Germany. They're trying to encourage other EU member states to contribute, even if they don't, for example, have an aircraft carrier. They can offer things like intelligence, funding, logistics support, and also other requirements for a naval undertaking of this kind.
Stuart, thank you for that. Our correspondent Stuart Smith in Brussels. Well, families of Israeli hostages still being held in Gaza have stormed the country's parliament. This comes after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed his hardline position against a Palestinian state, saying it would pose an existential danger to Israel. Let's talk to our correspondent Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv. Sarah, the Israeli government facing increasing pressure with dozens of hostages still being held in Gaza.
You're certainly right, Jamie. Dramatic scenes inside Israel's Knesset just a few hours ago, with some of these family members of the 130 or so hostages that do remain in the Strip storming that sitting there, as you mentioned, engaging in a screaming match with some of these lawmakers, saying, "You will not sit here while our children are killed." Now, they are, of course, calling on the government to bring these people home. While outside of the Knesset, there was another protest. We have got pictures there of people getting dragged away by Israeli security forces. Well, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has since sat down with around 15 of these families of the people who do remain in the Strip, telling them there was actually no concrete plan by Hamas to get these people out, saying that Israel has an initiative of its own to release these hostages, but falling short of saying exactly what that is. Now, Jamie, any minute now we can expect the Knesset to convene. They'll be discussing a motion of no confidence against the government and, of course, the Prime Minister Netanyahu. This was put forward by the opposition Yesh Atid party led by Yair Lapid, and they are just slamming the government, saying that there is no confidence in the government over its handling of what's going on in Gaza and also the release of these hostages. Jamie.
Let's talk about the military campaign. US intelligence has revealed that Israeli forces could be overstating their advance against Hamas fighters. What more do we know?
Well, this is being reported by the Wall Street Journal, citing US officials who have confirmed this classified report. Now, they estimate around 20 to 30% of Hamas fighters have been killed since Israel began this operation inside the Gaza Strip, really falling well short, you could say, of Israel's stated objective, and that is, of course, destroying Hamas, dismantling Hamas inside the Gaza Strip. Now, the report, Jamie, also goes on to say that the US believes that Hamas still has enough munitions to continue fighting Israel for months, while it also says that there are fighters that are taking on expanded roles to try and fill the gaps of those who have been killed. Now, this comes as Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has come out to say that the IDF is further expanding its operations down in the southern city of Khan Yunis, with the IDF also releasing pictures of a large tunnel underneath that city, and this is a city that it says is a Hamas stronghold. This is where it believes a leader of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar, is hiding underground, potentially surrounded by a number of captives. So this is why, Jamie, we are seeing increased military presence down in that southern city of Khan Yunis.
Sarah, thank you for that. Our correspondent Sarah Coates in Tel Aviv. Well, in Gaza itself, more than 190 people have now been killed in the last 24 hours. This according to Hamas authorities, making it one of the deadliest days of this conflict so far. They include dozens of victims in the city of Khan Yunis, where hospitals and schools have been hit by Israeli attacks. Many are housing thousands of civilians displaced from other parts of Gaza. Israel's military is currently focusing on the south, where it says Hamas commanders are hiding. Well, let's talk to our correspondent Noor Harazin in Rafah in southern Gaza. Noor, what's the latest on Khan Yunis?
Well, Khan Yunis city is located in southern Gaza, and it is a place where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians took refuge. They evacuated, they left their homes, fled their homes from northern Gaza at the beginning of this Israeli operation on Gaza, and they left to Khan Yunis city and Rafah city because they thought actually Khan Yunis in southern Gaza is a green area, is a safe area. However, what is happening today and over the past days and weeks is that the Israeli army are intensifying air attacks on green areas in Khan Yunis and also here in Rafah. Talking about some highlights, now the Israeli land incursion is actually the Israeli troops have centered and took the heart of Khan Yunis city. They are inside the Al-Namsawi neighborhood, the Al-Amal neighborhood. They also took control of eastern Khan Yunis. So this leaves us with the heart of Khan Yunis, where is the Al-Nasser hospital. There is hundreds of families there, displaced families, journalists, medical staff, people who are injured and patient. These people are actually being subjected to continuous Israeli bombing and attacks around the hospital, and in some occasions actually the shells hit the hospital, Al-Nasser hospital. According to the Palestinian medical sources, we are talking about dozens of people that were killed in Khan Yunis over the past days. However, the Palestinian medical sources did not give us numbers because the Palestinian paramedics and civil forces ambulances did not manage to move around the Al-Nasser hospital and evacuate the people who got injured or killed.
Away from the front line of this conflict, there's also a financial battle taking place, isn't there? The Palestinian Authority tax funds will now be held in Norway. What more do we know about this?
Well, back in November, the Palestinian Authority actually refused to take partial a transfer from Israel for the tax fund, its tax fund, to pay the salaries of its employees, even though technically the PA employees means that they belong to Fatah party, not Hamas. They do not work or support Hamas. However, Israel from its side saying that they fear that this money will go to Hamas in Gaza. They did not send the tax money. 2 days ago on Friday, there was a long cabinet meeting, Israeli cabinet meeting, where they finally decided on Sunday that they will send the tax fund to Norway to be held by Norway and then transferred to the Palestinian Authority after an order from Israel. And this is something that actually Palestinians here on the ground, they want. We are talking about 3 months of Israeli war on Gaza without any salaries for the people in Gaza, the employees. And at the same time, we are looking at a very expensive prices of everything here on the ground. The water, the food, even renting a place, renting a tent, everything is not even double the price or triple. We can actually say it's 10th the price. So yes, this is something that the Palestinians are looking forward to, and they hope that maybe this move will facilitate sending the money to the PA employees here in Gaza.
Noor, thank you for that. Our correspondent Noor Harazin in Rafah in southern Gaza. The EU's foreign policy chief has told Ukraine that backing for the country is stronger than ever, despite the conflict in Gaza. Josep Borrell was speaking ahead of that meeting of EU foreign ministers in Brussels. As well as the crisis in the Middle East, delegates are meeting to discuss support for Ukraine as the fighting with Russia continues. EU members from former Soviet-controlled countries have appealed for funding for Kyiv to stay ring-fenced.
If we do not help Ukraine stop Russia now, it will be only all the more expensive for us later, because Russia will not stop. It can only be stopped. It is within our power. It is certainly in our interests to do this job and to do it right in the European Union.
Russia's foreign minister has arrived in New York to take part in meetings of the United Nations Security Council. Sergei Lavrov will join delegates on the Gaza conflict as well as talks over Ukraine, and is expected to hold meetings with UN officials. The Kremlin says Lavrov's presence is a chance to explain Russia's position to the international community. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, are extreme weather events on the rise? Storm Isha tears across the UK and Ireland, the 9th storm this winter.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us.
And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
The 27th of January marks the 60th anniversary of China and France beginning their diplomatic relationship and starting a historic new chapter. We'll be covering the partnership in detail with week-long special coverage and meeting the bridge builders who have dedicated their lives to strengthening ties between the two countries. China-France 60 years, beginning Saturday, the 27th of January, on CGTN. Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Europe strikes a hard line on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Ministers insist a two-state solution is the only answer. Our other headlines: Israeli protesters storm the country's parliament, demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. At least 8 people have now been killed and more than 40 are still missing after a landslide in China's Yunnan province. The disaster struck in a village in Zhaotong City just before 6 o'clock on Monday morning. The authorities say 500 people have now been moved to safety. China's President Xi Jinping has called for all-out efforts to try to save people in the area, which is now experiencing sub-zero temperatures. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, Yang Jiao, in Yunnan province. Yang, what are you seeing? What's the latest where you are?
I'm now just in a small village where the landslide happened. From here, we can see clearly the rubbles that have buried more than 40 people from 18 families. We can see the rescue work is still underway here, and some rescuers are still working against the time to search for the trapped villagers. So far, approximately 1,000 rescuers have been engaged in the rescue efforts, and we can see some of them are still using various equipment, including excavators and live detection instruments, trying to locate and rescue the trapped people. But the rescue efforts are encountering multiple challenges. First, the landslide has destabilized the entire mountain and increasing the risk of secondary disasters. So the rescuers have to be very cautious about the potential dangers. And secondly, the region is grappling with low temperatures due to a cold wave sweeping across the entire province. And the recent snowfall is complicating the rescue work. Right now, the temperature here is only -2 degrees Celsius. And experts say that since the villagers are buried deep underground, so it is very difficult to locate precisely them. So the rescuers are actually facing big challenges. But you can see they're still working around the clock. Actually, as a precautious measure, some local nearby villagers have been displaced to safety. More than 200 people have been evacuated to either the families of their relatives or a nearby elementary school for shelter, and they are receiving emergency supplies such as tents, quilts, and winter coats. Actually, this region, this village is part of the Zhenxiong County in Yunnan Province, and this region is susceptible for natural disasters due to its unique geological conditions. Back in January 2013, another major landslide also hit this region and causing 46 fatalities. And also, additionally, the landslide has also caused partial damage to power supply, and related departments are still working actively to restore it. And since the situation here is fluid, we will keep you updated as more information becomes more available. And later tonight there will be a press conference, and hopefully there will be more information from government coming out. Back to the studio.
Yang, thank you for that. Our correspondent Yang Jinghao in Yunnan Province. Well, hurricane-force gales have brought travel disruption and power blackouts to many parts of northern Europe. Storm Isha has unleashed some of the worst weather in years across the UK and Ireland. 2 people are known to have died. Our correspondent Paul Hawkins reports.
Western Ireland feeling the full force of Isha. These were some of the strongest winds for decades. Thousands left without power, buildings damaged, including this clock tower, while this car had a lucky escape. Trees blown over, luckily no one was in this car. Trains and planes cancelled, delayed, or even diverted. This was Dublin Airport, where thousands of passengers were stranded. Likewise at Edinburgh Airport, where this suitcase took matters into its own hands. And this was why. Pilots using all their skill and nerve to land safely. Or not. This flight from Brussels aborting at the last second with one wheel on the ground. Many thousands watching the drama unfold on Big Jet TV.
Here we go. Come on, son, get it down. Get it down. Nice.
Since 2015, there have been up to 9 named storms each winter. Storm Isha is already the 9th, and the 10th, named Jocelyn, is forecast to hit the UK on Tuesday, and it's only January. Paul Hawkins, CGTN.
Religion and politics have converged once again in India, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi Modi has inaugurated a controversial Hindu temple. The temple in the city of Ayodhya is built on the site of a 16th century mosque destroyed by Hindu mobs in 1992, an incident which sparked riots that left nearly 2,000 people dead. Opposition parties and some prominent Hindus have accused Modi of seeking political gain ahead of forthcoming elections. Well, our correspondent Radhika Bajaj is in Mumbai. Radhika, the opening may be celebrated by many people, but it's also very controversial, isn't it?
For sure, Jamie. The temple's been inaugurated in Ayodhya in the north of the country, but across India today, we have seen several states announcing public holidays, fireworks going off, sweets being distributed, and people congregating to sing religious chants and songs. So for Indian Hindus, this really has been a momentous day, a historical day, one that they've awaited for a long time. But the day has also seen concerns emerging from those who were affected by violence that has been generated because of this particular site in the past. You must remember that the temple site has been a flashpoint between Hindus and Muslims for hundreds of years. Hindus believe the site is the birthplace of Lord Ram, and that the holy site was pillaged, and a temple was in fact razed by Muslim invaders. And on this, the Babri Masjid was built in 1528. In 1949, we saw that Hindu activists placed the idols of Lord Ram inside the disputed mosque. They started worshipping it. After that, we saw long legal cases being filed from both the Hindu and the Muslim side. In the early 1990s, we saw a movement that galvanized Hindus from far and wide, far across India. And the point of the movement was to build the Ram temple. And in 1992, we saw that Hindu activists tore down the Babri Masjid, which led to the riots that took place across the country, killing about 2,000 people. Now, legal battles, of course, have ensued for a very long time. But in 2019, the top court of the country ordered that the disputed land be handed over to the Hindus. An order was also given to allot a piece of land to the Muslims to build a mosque on. That hasn't been built yet. But the Muslim community in India has had some time to adjust to the reality of the Ayodhya Ram temple, because the order came in 2019. In 2020, there was the foundation that was laid for the temple. And today, of course, we've seen a massive ceremony, which everybody has been talking about all day.
Radhika, thank you for that. Our correspondent Radhika Bajaj in Mumbai. The headlines again. Europe strikes a hard line on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Ministers insist a two-state solution is the only answer. Our other headlines: Israeli protesters storm the country's parliament, demanding the release of hostages still being held in Gaza. And one other story for you. At least 8 people are now confirmed dead, and dozens of others are missing in a landslide in China. And that is the world today. Thank you for watching. There's more news on CGTN Europe's channel, on the Telegram app, or scan the QR code on the screen to get stories and updates sent direct to your phone. We're back with more news at the top of this hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all of the team in London, it's goodbye.